Padme's death was a mystery that the medical droids couldn't solve. But I think if we search our feelings, we may come to find the true answer. Come, take a journey with me and let's see if we can crack a Star Wars mystery. Well, hello there. My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Padme, why'd she have to die? There are many great mysteries in Star Wars, such as what lies in the unknown regions and how is Grand Admiral Thrawn so cool. Today we're going to crack one of those giant mysteries of Star Wars, this one being the mysterious death of Padme. And perhaps we'll even come up with a more satisfying answer than simply, she lost the will to live. Perhaps treachery from a certain Dark Lord was involved. But first, before we get to a theory, we must be good Sherlockian detectives and rule out the possible before we can get to the seemingly impossible. In Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin spent much of the movie worrying about Padme dying in childbirth due to visions he was having. He tried to gain the power to prevent that from happening and turned to the dark side in part to prevent her death. In the end, though, the premonitions came true, and Padme did precisely that. After giving birth to twins, she died. But why did she die? Palpatine told Anakin that in his anger, he killed Padme. Did he mean when he force-choked her? A signature Darth Vader move. If you recall, after Obi-Wan confronted her, Padme followed Anakin to Mustafar. There she tried to get through to Anakin and pleaded with him to leave. It went a little something like this. You're going down a path I can't follow. Because of Obi-Wan. Because of what you've done, what you plan to do. Stop! Stop now! Come back! I love you! Liar! He says to Obi-Wan. No! You're with him! You brought him here to kill me! No! He starts force-choking Padme at this point. Let her go, Anakin. Anakin. Let her go! Only at this point does he let Padme go. And then she collapses to the ground, and as she hits the ground, we can visibly see her head actually bounce on the ground. A little bit later, Obi-Wan checks on her when he gets a chance. After Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight, Obi-Wan checks on her when he gets onto the ship. She is responsive, but not doing well. After reaching Polis Massa, she is rushed into the medical bay. So, was the force choke or the impact of her head on the ground to blame for her death? The medical droid tells Obi-Wan, medically, she is completely healthy. For reasons we can't explain, we're losing her. She's dying. We don't know why. She has lost the will to live. We need to operate quickly if we are to save the babies. From this exchange, we can clearly see that Padme did not die from physical trauma caused by Anakin, either through his force choke or her head hitting the ground. Otherwise, she clearly wouldn't be found to be medically completely healthy. They would have found something wrong with her if either of those were to blame. So let's strike that one off the list. How about the claim that she died from a broken heart? I've heard that said quite a bit. Now, it could be taken to be a misinterpretation of what was said in the movie, or maybe this is the correct answer. So first off, can you actually die from a broken heart? The answer is apparently yes, you can in fact die from a broken heart. It goes by the name broken heart syndrome, also known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy or acute stress cardiomyopathy. I'll leave some links in the description if you want to know more beyond what I tell you. We do know that Padme was under a great deal of emotional stress even before she met with Anakin on Mustafar. You can see it clearly on her face before she gets off the ship. Then comes the following conversation. I saw your ship. What are you doing out here? I was so worried about you. Obi-Wan told me terrible things. What things? He said you turned to the dark side? That you killed younglings? Obi-Wan is trying to turn you against me. He cares about us. Us? He knows. He wants to help you. Anakin, all I want is your love. Love won't save you, Padme. Only my new powers can do that. At what cost? You're a good person. Don't do this. I won't lose you the way I lost my mother. I am becoming more powerful than any Jedi has ever dreamed of, and I'm doing it for you, to protect you. Come away with me. Help me raise our child. Leave everything else behind while we still can. Don't you see? We don't have to run away anymore. I have brought peace to the Republic. I am more powerful than the Chancellor. I can overthrow him, and together, you and I can rule the galaxy, make things the way we want them to be. I don't believe what I'm hearing. Obi-Wan was right. You've changed. I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan. The Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me. I don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow. Shortly after that, Obi-Wan appears. Anakin decides that Padme has clearly betrayed, and Anakin force chokes her, as we saw earlier. She clearly talks about a broken heart during that conversation, and she is clearly under a great deal of emotional stress. Could she have died from a broken heart? I'm pretty sure the answer here is no. Many of the symptoms of a broken heart are actually quite similar to a heart attack. There is chest pain and shortness of breath, and EKGs which are similar but distinct from a heart attack. In fact, it's often confused with being a heart attack. Some of the other differences between the two include ballooning and movement abnormalities in the left ventricle of the heart. Most people recover from broken heart syndrome and have no permanent damage. But Padme could not have had this because it most certainly would have been detected, and instead we are told that medically she's completely healthy. They would have detected that with the EKGs. They would have seen the chest pain, the shortness of breath. So clearly we do not see this as the logical explanation. So the final explanation explicitly offered within the movie is that, quote, she has lost the will to live, end quote. What does that mean? Well, like broken heart syndrome, this too can actually happen. Losing the will to live is also known as give-up-itis, or psychogenic death. In 2018, Dr. John Leach published the first study that closely examined it and defined its stages. Dr. Leach said, quote, psychogenic death is real. It isn't suicide. It isn't linked to depression. But the act of giving up on life and dying, usually within days, is a very real condition, often linked to severe trauma, end quote. The time period tends to be somewhere between a few days of the first stage and a few weeks. The first stage is social withdrawal. We do see this in Padme, although it should be noted that social withdrawal is not unique to psychogenic death, as it is a common response to severe trauma, which Padme certainly just suffered. The second stage is a deep apathy. Survivors have described it as being a demoralizing melancholy, not just simple sadness. It's very hard to say if this fits Padme based on what we saw. The third stage is called abulia. Essentially, the apathy increases to the point that the person often stops speaking and eating and does not perform normal tasks. This does not really appear to fit as well for Padme, as we see her talk to Obi-Wan. She names her children Luke and Leia, and she tells Obi-Wan that there is still good in Anakin just before she dies. The fourth stage is called psychic akinesia, and in this stage, a person loses their response to physical stimulus. They can even encounter intense pain and have no response to it. Padme, in the midst of childbirth, is clearly reacting to it. So this doesn't seem to really fit with that psychic akinesia. And then the fifth stage? Well, the fifth stage is the final stage, which is death. It is recoverable, though. Losing the will to live can be reversed, quote, when a survivor finds or recovers a sense of choice or having some control, end quote. It would seem that Padme's choice of the names of her children might help fit the bill here, but she dies anyway. Does losing the will to live actually explain Padme's death? I have to say that it comes closer than any of the other potential reasons we've looked at. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I have to say I don't think it fits. For the reasons I've already mentioned, she still feels pain, she talks with Obi-Wan, she makes choices. And if you want to know more about losing the will to live, I'll leave some links in the description. So now we're left with no obvious answer as to why Padme died. We looked at a few, and none of them really work. And this is an intriguing mystery. And I was never really happy with her having just died due to losing the will to live. It was never a satisfying end. But what if there is a better answer? Well, young Padawan, you're in luck, because do I have a theory for you. How about having the life essence drained out of her using the dark side by Palpatine? Certainly possible for a medical droid to miss that. This theory does not originally come from me, but was popularized and well documented by RetroZAP in a blog post. If you're curious to check out their take on the theory, I'll have a link down below in the description. Now, let's take a look at this point by point. 1. Other explanations have been ruled out. We've already seen earlier in the video that physical trauma, a broken heart, and losing the will to live are definitely not the right answers. At least I certainly don't think they are. 2. The dark side might have been undetectable. The droids wouldn't have been able to detect the use of the Force to drain Padme's life force. This seems like a reasonable assumption to me, and I don't know anything in canon that contradicts it. If you do, go ahead and let me know down in the comments, of course, but I'm not aware of anything that would contradict that and say that the droids would have been able to detect it. 3. Palpatine could influence life itself. In Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine talks with Anakin at the big ol' bubble opera scene as follows. Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? No, I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a Dark Lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side that he could even keep the ones he loved from dying. He could actually save people from death? The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. Well, what happened to him? He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself. In case it wasn't clear that Palpatine was referencing himself as being Plagueis' apprentice, he makes it even more clear later in the movie. So from this, we know that Palpatine most certainly had the ability to influence life, and be able to influence the midichlorians. 4. Palpatine could drain the life energy from others. In the latest movie, Rise of Skywalker, we see Palpatine clearly drain the life force from Rey and Kylo Ren, or Ben at that point, I suppose. He drains their life force and is bringing it into himself. So clearly, that heavily supports the theory we're talking about right now, a theory which predates Rise of Skywalker. 5. Palpatine can use the Force at long distances. In Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine detected that Anakin was in danger on Mustafar, while Palpatine himself was still on Coruscant. And this was right after his fight with Yoda, when you would think he'd be a little more drained. He also knows Padme was dead later in the movie, clearly indicating that he could detect it from where he was all the way to Polis Massa, or that he had caused it from where he was all the way over to Polis Massa. Now in the sequel trilogy, episodes 7 through 9, Palpatine created and controlled Snoke seemingly at quite some distance. Further, he was able to connect Rey and Kylo across huge distances, something that was beyond anyone else's power level, including Luke. Given this, it is at least possible that he may have been able to drain Padme's life force from a great distance. 5. Anakin was seriously hurt. Anakin was on the verge of death on Mustafar after his fight with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan left him for dead, not imagining that he would somehow survive. But Palpatine was able to bring him back to life. Knowing that Palpatine knows how to use the dark side to save people from dying, and that it's possible for Palpatine to drain the life force from others to make someone else stronger, it seems plausible that draining someone else's life force could be used to give Anakin more strength and make sure that he survives. 6. Anakin and Padme's connection. Given the connection that Anakin and Padme had, it could be reasoned that taking the life force from Padme might be more powerful and more compatible for helping save Anakin than someone else. I'm not saying they're a force dyad or anything like in Rise of Skywalker, but still, that connection might very well have made it even more reasonable to take Padme's life force. 7. Palpatine has motive to kill Padme. Padme would have been the biggest threat to Palpatine's control over Anakin as Vader. She was a clear connection to his pre-Vader past as well. And Anakin loved Padme. Could he have left Palpatine over that? We'll never know. Could he have chosen to overthrow Palpatine if Padme was still alive? Again, we'll never know. But was he certainly defeated and a broken person upon Padme's death? Definitely. Even more so with Palpatine saying that he was the one that killed her. With all of this said, Palpatine has a clear and obvious, strong motive to kill Padme. 8. The heartbeats. Now this is an interesting one. In the movie, the heartbeats of both Padme and Anakin are audible during the scenes where Padme is dying and Anakin is being turned into Darth Vader. Then they both stop. Once Vader is complete with the mask on, then a single heartbeat starts. This feels like an audible way of telling us that Anakin and Padme died to give Vader life, and that would certainly play into this theory. Now here's a possible bonus number 9. It doesn't quite follow with everything else, but at the same time it supports the general idea. Because there is also the thought out there that Palpatine could have set in motion Anakin, as Vader, draining the life force from Padme. This would mean that Palpatine wasn't actually lying when he told Vader that he killed Padme in his anger. It was true after all, from a certain point of view. It would also change Vader's interpretation of having felt Padme being alive to being a recent feeling, rather than way back on Mustafar. Now, I don't think this is necessary, that's why it's a bonus number, and I think it feels like it could be a bit of a stretch, but it also seems possible. Now, just for a reminder, the conversation between Palpatine and Vader went a little like this. "Lord Vader, can you hear me?"
"Yes, Master. Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?"
I'm no James Earl Jones, I'll just tell you.
"It seems in your anger, you killed her." I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it."
Palpatine knowingly smiles.
"No!"
So there you have it. 8 points, and a bonus potential point, in support of the theory that Palpatine killed Padme. The biggest weakness in this theory is the great distance at which the draining had to take place. But we have seen Palpatine pull off impressive force feats at great distances, so perhaps this is possible too. After all, remember what Sherlock Holmes said. When you have eliminated all which is impossible, then whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Although, in all fairness, there are probably some other possible answers sitting out there as well that we just haven't seen or thought of. What about my opinion on this in the end? I like it better than any other explanation I've heard yet. So until someone comes up with a better theory, I'm going with Palpatine killed Padme. Case closed. But what do you think? Does this theory hold water from Camino? Or is it like the sand of Tatooine slipping through our fingers? Or perhaps you are being drawn to the dark side and believe in the quick and easy path of losing the will to live. Let me know down below. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And I'll see you back here again tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. And if you haven't done it yet, click that subscribe button and ring the bell. Have a magical day, everyone, and may the Force be with you always.